Mamata Banerjee is arguably one of the most successful opposition leaders to beat back the BJP juggernaut on her turf. The 2021 assembly elections in West Bengal saw her returning as chief minister for the third time, and her political battle cry of Khela Hobe became the source of some hope for the opposition at that point. Today in Kolkata, while addressing a party program, Mamata Di repeated the chant and said there will be Khela Hobe, which simply put means game on, in 2024. She said, and I quote, I, Nitish Kumar, Hemant Soren, Akhilesh and many others will come together in 2024. Let's listen in first to what she said.
2024 এমন খেলা খেলবো বিজেপি বাবুরা বুঝতে পারবেন খেলার নাম বাবাজি না বাপুজি কি বলে বাবাজি খেলার নাম বাবাজি ওই খেলাটা হবে আর খেলাটা বাংলা থেকেই তৈরি হবে এখন তো আমরা একসাথে ওদিকে নীতিশজি আছে ওদিকে অখিলেশ আছে ওদিকে হেমন্ত আছে ওদিকে আমি আছি ওদিকে আমাদের বন্ধুরা আছে সর্বত্র আছি আমরা সব এক হয়ে যাবে দেখবেন আর 275 না 80 আর 300 নিয়ে গর্ব করে বেড়াচ্ছে তো রাজীব গান্ধীর সময় 400 ছিল তাও ধরে রাখতে পারেনি আর এদের 300 কাছাকাছি আছে তো এই যে আমি 5টা রাজ্যের কথা বললাম এখানেই 100টা ঘ্যাচাংফু কোত্থেকে করবে এটা কোত্থেকে সরকার
Now, what makes this claim and this war cry significant is that Mamata Banerjee is not the only one who has begun embarking on the opposition unity dream once again. Over the last 3 days, Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar has met Rahul Gandhi, Arvind Kejriwal, Sharad Pawar, Sitaram Yechury and Akhilesh Yadav, among others. Last week, Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao travelled to Patna to meet Nitish Kumar and even proclaimed they would work together for a BJP Mukt Bharat. The Congress, meanwhile, is on its Bharat Jodo Yatra. Now, the opposition preparing for a general election less than 2 years in advance is to be expected. But the announcements come with a sense of deja vu. Opposition unity has been attempted time and again over the last 8 years to combat a growing and strengthening BJP. A couple of things have come in the way, namely, individual ambitions have not really allowed for a united front, too many prime ministerial candidates. The lack of a cohesive platform that counters what the BJP politically offers is another problem. The question is, can things be different this time round? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Shishir Bajoria, BJP spokesperson, Saket Gokhale of the TMC joining us today on the show, as is Madhvan Narayanan, senior journalist. Welcome to all of you and thank you so much for speaking with us today on Beyond the Headlines. Saket, let me begin with, what exactly Mamata Banerjee means when she says Khela Hobe 2024. Is it going to be more than an empty slogan?
It's definitely an empty slogan. You saw it in the assembly election last year. Far than a slogan with man, 4 seats that what Di said today is quite, if you look at it, quite logical mathematically. If you look at opposition leaders today, there's Mr. Nitish Kumar in Bihar, there is Hemant Soren in Jharkhand, there is Tejasvi Yadav and the RJD, which comes with its own number of seats. There are other parties. There's Mr. Stalin in Tamil Nadu. There is KCR in Telangana. So look, the 2024 election, the TMC is going to fight the election in West Bengal. That is our strong turf. Similarly, Mr. KCR and the TRS will fight it in Telangana. Mr. Nitish Kumar and RJD will fight it in Bihar. So the idea of a collective opposition is just that. Nobody steps on each other's turf. We go and we contest in places where we are strong. We have a common background, we are like-minded parties as we Parliament stand together. We have similar views. We have a similar vision that we put forth. We are people.
Saket, the skepticism comes from failed attempts in the past, and I will let Mr. Bajoria get in on it. But that's where the issue is. The skepticism comes from the multiple attempts in the past which have not really gone anywhere.
Please give me 1 minute.
And
1 minute to respond to that.
Sure, sure. But let me complete the question, and then you can take more than 1 minute. Every time this begins, say, about a year and a half, 2 years before the election, as it should be, it's part of the democratic process. And then you go into this, who is going to be the potential prime minister, who's going to be the leader, you didn't invite me for this gathering, you didn't take my view on this manifesto, you didn't, and then it all crumbles. We saw that even with the presidential and the vice presidential elections.
Look, it's a very sweeping statement to make because technically there has only been one Lok Sabha election, which is 2019. Before that, if you remember, the UPA, which ruled till 2014, was a coalition of multiple opposition parties coming together. So it's not like opposition parties have not come together. They governed the country. UPA 1 and UPA 2 were a conglomeration of many opposition parties coming together, some of whom might be even contesting against each other in states. So there has only been one election in the interim, which is 2019. Now, I don't want to go out and point faults and point finger at one party or another saying that, someone should come to the table and sit as equals, etc. But the bottom line today is that there is no one party today that, that can say that, we sit at the head of the table like a party could in 2004. So therefore, things are very different today. Things are very different in the run-up to 2024. And every state leader that I spoke of, or even the Honorable Chief Minister spoke of, every state leader has demonstrated their power by winning in their own states. Be it Mr. Nitish Kumar, be it KCR, be it Hemant Soren, all of these, be it Stalin, all of these are people who have won phenomenally in their own states.
Shishir Bajoria, are you worried about this Khela Hobe in 2024? If everyone comes together, I mean, mathematically, electorally, the BJP will be challenged.
It is the greatness of a democracy that the opposition will challenge the ruling party. That's democracy, and I welcome it. But here the issue is something totally different. Your question to me was very pointedly on Khela Hobe. Let me tell you, Khela Hobe does not mean let the game begin. It does not, and Mamata Banerjee knows it. If Saket does not know it, let me tell Saket. She gave this slogan of Khela Hobe with a threat. And let me speak, sir. Let me speak, sir. Let me speak, sir.
No, Saket, let him speak. That's not the decorum of this show. You know that. Let him speak and then you will respond. He listened to you very, very quietly.
He shouldn't take
I lost. My party
Why
lost.
should he take your name? You respond.
People.
Wait, he's not saying anything.
53 people in 45
1 minute.
days.
Let him speak. Yes.
Tell me what I know and what I don't know.
You can respond when your turn comes, Saket. You can respond to all of these points, but don't interrupt what he's saying. Yes, yes.
Saket Babu, I will say what I want to say. Don't tell me what I have to say. Now, Khela Hobe slogan was coined by her, and we had warned, we had gone to the governor that this is a threat. This is a threat. And Khela Hobe resulted in 53 BJP karyakartas being killed, brutally killed in 45 days after the election result. That was Khela Hobe. And by the way, Tamanna, you possibly play the Bangla version again, what Mamata Banerjee said today. She said, Amon Khela Hobe. Khela Naam Babaji. Look, as a Bengali, I'll tell you what that means. This is a straight-cut threat. She has no power outside the state of West Bengal. So this is a threat again because she knows where BJP is in West Bengal.
No, so what are you saying, Shishirji? What exactly are you saying she's said?
I'm saying
what is your claim? It's not very clear.
My message is clear. In democracy, opposition unites. As a ruling party in the
My question to you was that does BJP see this war cry, this battle cry, which has demolished you in the assembly elections in 2021 as a threat?
Tamanna ji, that was my precise answer. This war cry, costed us 53 people in 45 days. 53 people. But as far as democracy is concerned, it's the greatness of democracy if they get together. But I have only one question. They mentioned a lot of names. Mamata Banerjee mentioned. Not a single Congress name was mentioned. Do you see a situation?
So she said and others. She said and others.
Of course. Yes, of course.
She said and others. They can't be like a full laundry list. Saket Gokhale, is the Congress out in the cold? Your response to Shishir Bajoria?
Madam, let me complete.
No, let him
Tamanna,
speak now.
let me
Let him
complete.
speak now. Let Saket speak now, Mr. Bajoria. Let Saket speak now.
I patiently waited. He took a long time. Let me complete at least. No, I'm sorry. Let me complete.
Okay, okay. Let him complete. Let him complete. Yes, please complete your point quickly,
And
please, sir.
then they speak about the great victory of Nitish Kumar. Sirji, Nitish Kumar is number 3 party in the Bihar Assembly. Sirji, if you call that victory, well, Saket Babu, good luck to you.
All right. Have you completed your point? Can we get a
Yes,
counter?
yes, madam.
All right. Yes, Saket.
Yes, madam.
Shishir Babu, maybe you're not informed, but let me tell you that Nitish Kumar runs the government with the single largest party in Bihar called the RJD. आपको पता नहीं है, आपको सरकार गिराना आता है, बनाना आता नहीं है. Anyway, besides the main point, what Mr. Bajoria talked about threats, let me remind him of a statement Union Home Minister Amit Shah made in Maharashtra, in my home state about 2 days ago. He said Uddhav Thackeray needs to be taught a lesson. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has stood on stage during elections and said, "Kapdo se pehchan sakte ho." Yogi Adityanath has said 60-40. So BJP should not preach people about, virtue signaling and dog whistling and how they direct people's attention to
how
things
many
and how
murders took place? So,
One by
Saket
one,
Babu,
sir. One
how
by
many
one.
murders
You
took
expect
place?
people to listen to you. You must listen to them as well.
I just gave him back in his own coin.
This is called the Narendra Modi syndrome, where you just talk and talk but don't listen to other people. Please learn to listen.
Oh, thank you.
As far as the Congress party goes, the BJP should not be worried about the Congress party. Whether they are our allies, whether Mamata Di referred to them, what we talk to the Congress, that shouldn't be the BJP's problem. Look, the BJP everywhere is trying to send agencies to opposition leaders' houses. The there is not a single opposition party that has been spared by them. So trying to look into semantics that says she didn't mention this party and she mentioned this party. Now, today Mamata Di did not mention Mr. Sharad Pawar's name. Does that mean NCP is not an ally of the TMC? Of course the NCP is a like-minded party. Of course the NCP is a powerful ally of the opposition. So this whole nitpicking about ye naam nahi liya, wo naam nahi liya, the thing is, the difference, sir, is that today the BJP has become this one party which starts and ends at Narendra Modi. All of your allies, including Nitish Kumar, Akali Dal, all of them.
Saket, they'll argue they don't need anyone else. They don't need anyone else.
That's what they think. See, that's the mistake they made. That's the mistake they keep making everywhere. They think they don't need anybody, but then why do they go and they purchase MLAs from other parties by giving ED threats and giving money? If they don't need anybody, why couldn't they form the government in Maharashtra? They couldn't. They had to break the Shiv Sena for that. They're trying to do the same in Jharkhand. They couldn't form the government in Jharkhand. So the question is, they need other parties, but the thing is they're too megalomaniacal to go to other parties and say we need an alliance. So they threaten them using ED, they throw money at a problem. But after a certain point, they need to understand that money is not going to buy you everything. Ho gaya. पैसा फेंकोगे उसका लिमिट होता है. Beyond a certain point,
What is going to change? Saket Gokhale is saying ho gaya. What is going to change? Madhvan Narayanan. Let me bring Madhvan in. He's been listening patiently at this late hour and trying to keep awake. Madhvan, what do you make of the Khela Hobe slogan, the attempts in opposition unity, and what is the X factor this time round? Is it Nitish Kumar, who seems to be someone who's been going around meeting everyone in the last few days?
Oh, Tamanna, thank you for giving me the chance finally. And thank you for also mentioning that I'm keeping awake. Well, I was yawning after a fairly good dinner, but I think the gentleman here made sufficient noise to wake me up. Although I must say that it kind of didn't go with the brand Tamanna and brand Mirror now I know of having meaningful discussions. Because
that you're going to bring that brand X Factor, Madhvan, no problem. It's going to be better than your dinner. Yes, please.
Let me bring more facts into the picture. I wish this was a substantive discussion on opposition unity in the run-up to the 2024 elections and not merely reading into slogans like Khela Hobe and teaching them a lesson, because these are just phrases that are used. In English these days, we say he's going to kill it. That doesn't mean he's going to actually kill it. You say Virat Kohli today killed it by scoring a century. It doesn't mean he killed anyone. So let's not go too much into the semantics of slogans. But yes, we know West Bengal politics was always bitter. So the accusations have shifted from TMC talking about CPM to BJP talking about TMC. But let's step back, Tamanna, and ask ourselves some very interesting questions. Why did, first of all, let's get the context right. Mamata Banerjee doesn't have to fight only BJP. She also has to fight Congress and the CPM, who I'm sure are part of opposition unity efforts in the run-up to 2024. So Ms. Banerjee's problem is not a simple open and shut one. She has to do a Rubik's Cube sort of a situation where her position is not undermined by the emergence of CPM and Congress in the opposition ranks. And let me also point out that Rahul Gandhi has met, Nitish Kumar. Nitish Kumar has patched up with Lalu Yadav's RJD. Stalin, MK Stalin of the DMK has actually met Arvind Kejriwal, who is a rival of the Congress in Delhi.
Right.
And therefore, we are looking at a very intricate scenario for 2024. Although everybody has a broad intent clear that opposition is going to work unitedly to fight the BJP under Narendra Modi. But let me also bring in two more facts, Tamanna, extremely significant if you ask me, which is that not so long ago, Ms. Mamata Banerjee had a controversially eyebrow-raising meeting with Gautam Adani, the industrialist, ostensibly on investments in West Bengal, but knowing that Rahul Gandhi spent a good part of his time yesterday talking against the Adanis gaining from Modi government, that is of significance to me. So is the significance of the fact that Mamata Banerjee said a couple of days ago that RSS has good people, and I also like to point your attention that Mamata Banerjee was also a minister under Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's cabinet.
Right.
So BJP is not an untouchable for her. You cannot suddenly wake up one fine morning and say, oh, BJP, I'm not going to touch you anymore. Because, people will say, Modi's, I know the usual rhetoric will go out from TMC and BJP on this. But Tamanna, you and I discuss it always at a certain higher level. So the point, what is to be read under this is that Mamata Banerjee is keen on opposition unity, but in a manner in which the Congress and CPM will form the tail and not the head of the parlays and the opposition. She wants to also steer not just the unity, but the shape of the unity. And that is very significant in today's context because she wants to make sure she's into her third term. There's already a anti-incumbency and ennui factor that she has to face. And she's against a very tough opposition of BJP. May I point out that Netaji Subhash Bose's statue has been inaugurated today by Prime Minister Modi in the heart of New Delhi. And Mamata Banerjee boycotted it on the ground that she wasn't invited properly. So she's scared of or concerned, if I may say so. She's concerned about the Bengali icon being appropriated by the BJP. Therefore, Mamata Banerjee is playing very well. The Khela Hobe is actually, she's doing a very good job of defending her turf, but it's not an easy turf. There are fielders on the leg side.
Come back to you on a follow-up on one point you said, that Mamata Banerjee wants the CPIM and the Congress to be a tail of this opposition unity piece. Is that even workable? Everyone wants opposition unity but doesn't want the Congress to play such a big part. Just look at the numbers, and we'll pull up those 2019 numbers again, the vote share. The Congress is still the biggest opposition party nationally, isn't it? Even as it continues to get diminished.
Exactly. No, I think, Tamanna, I'm glad you raised that point because that is exactly let me use a Hindi term, wahin jaake khatti hai. That is where it rankles for Mamata Banerjee that if you have Rajasthan and let us say a good part of, let's say, Chhattisgarh under Congress, Kerala is under CPM, but Congress is quite strong there. Therefore, Mamata Banerjee has to make sure that the shape of the opposition unity is something that is not does not hurt her interest too much. So who knows, at the back of her mind, she might be having some plan B in mind. And as they say, you never say never in politics, especially if you have a precedent of not being treating the BJP as an untouchable.
Saket, your response to some of the commentary coming in from Madhvan Narayanan today?
May I also come in at some point?
Yes, I will. Shishirji, I will come to you, but since I'll come to you, but since Mr. Narayanan has specifically spoken about Mamata Banerjee's outlook to Congress, I think we should just get a TMC point of view before I come to you. Just allow me. Yes, Saket.
Let me put it straight and clear today. Okay, Forget the fact that in Parliament, we are the ones taking the lead and opposing the BJP. Mr. Narayanan, has a conspiracy theory that the BJP is not untouchable. If my party ever decides to go together with the BJP, I'll quit politics forever. And I am that reassured about the fact that
my God.
BJP. We will join
Oh my God.
not the BJP.
Let him speak.
Saket Babu. Saket Babu.
Let him speak.
Saket Babu, you'll do that.
Grow up, please.
Let him
Talk
speak. Let him speak. He's making a statement. Let him speak. Yes.
Now, so these conspiracy theories are just their conspiracies. Okay, who has been with whom and who has been with what? I mean, everybody has. There are a lot of parties that have been a part of the ND also that have later been a part of the UP as well. So I don't wish to get into that. Second thing, Mr. Narayanan says, Congress is a formidable force. If you look at Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh, I'm sorry, but maybe Mr. Narayanan would like to remind me of how many seats the Congress got in the Lok Sabha from Rajasthan in the 2019 elections. The number is 0. So that doesn't rankle us or bother us. At the end of the day, look, anything that is going to be decided is going to be decided once the poll results are out. It is not about, I step on somebody else's turf and I look down on this party and that party looks down on this one. That's not the case. At the end of it, the opposition parties come together. And like I said, the UPA 1 and UPA 2 did come together. I mean, we were also a part of the UPA government at some point. So just as Mr. Narayanan said, we are part of the NDA. There are a lot of parties which are part of the UPA as well.
Okay.
And we were not, and again, remember, the BJP under Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee and the corporation that Narendra Modi runs today are two completely different parties.
Okay. Mr. Bajoria, your chance to respond unfettered. I hope the other panelists will listen to him. He's been patient. This is unlike most debates. You will see that everyone gets a chance to talk, and I think it's only fair for our viewers. Yes, Mr. Bajoria.
Thank you very much. Let's put it this way. Let me start by thanking Saket, his comment on Rajasthan. The Congress is 0, is not bothered. Yes, because we are 100%. So thanks. You did my job. Now, let's come to this so-called united opposition. In English, there's a very, very common saying, united we stand, divided we fall. Yahan to opposition is standing divided. Ye kab united honge aur ye to gire hue hain hi hai. Now the issue is this. But if the opposition wants to unite to fight the 2024, as I said, in the interest of democracy, as a great democratic nation, I would welcome it. But then each of the parties here mentioned, it's very clear that none of you are good enough on your own to challenge BJP, to challenge the might of BJP. In fact, now the figures which Tamanna you showed, very, very good figures. I would request if those figures, the vote percentage figures could be showed again. Look at those figures, 37%, then 19%. And those who are getting together without naming, they don't even talk of that 19%. And before I get a lecture on don't tell us what to do, the rest are in single digits.
Okay, I want one caveat to the figures that we're showing you. Of course, this is not all political parties who fought the 2019 elections. We have picked the parties who have made statements or who have met in the last few days.
Of course.
So,
of course.
So that caveat needs to be there before, we can compare apples to oranges.
Yeah. No, perfectly fine. I'm only looking at the scoreboard that you have up on the screen because these are the people who are getting together. We won't talk about the presidential election and vice presidential election where they fell before they stood. Now, there's one common point which binds the opposition. There is a common point. And that common point is their lust for the gaddi. They have no agenda. They have no policy. They have no nothing except lust for the gaddi. And the party which rules the state of West Bengal, where the state I come from, the party which rules the state of West Bengal, you don't know how many ministers, fish sellers have cash piles in their home. Fish sellers, a common fishmonger, common street
pot
seller.
shots against the TMC section will be later. We're talking about opposition unity in all seriousness right now. So and Madhvan, they're saying, let Madhvan come in. Shishir Bajoria is saying that all opposition parties have a lust for gaddi. Which political party doesn't have lust for gaddi?
Yeah. You asking me?
Yes,
Tamanna?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, obviously, I think these are just words. We have to look beyond these fancy words like lust and quest for power. They are all in this for power. Let's make no mistake on that. But let me focus on one aspect which might please Saket, because last time he was quite upset with what I said. But my job as an analyst is not to miss a single point in the discourse, and that's what we do at Mirror now all the time. The important point to remember is, let me come to the defense by accident for Saket, which is that there was no high inflation the last, 2019 election data was overwhelming in favor of not even BJP, in favor of Mr. Narendra Modi. The Balakot airstrike, I mean, he was on a roll like Virat Kohli playing in a zone. But neither Virat Kohli nor Narendra Modi are in the same position right now as they were in 2019. There has been high inflation, unemployment data is strong, and also having watched politics for a long time, I know that it's very difficult to get a third term. Mamata Banerjee has done it, congratulations, but it's never easy to win a third or fourth term. Or you have to be an extremely focused workman like Naveen Patnaik, who I believe will also be playing a major role in the 2024 election. So I will not extrapolate 2019 data on this, but I believe the issues emerging are giving the opposition a reasonable chance, assuming they get some of their acts right. Let me also point out that in 1996, there was no opposition unity. In spite of that, Deve Gowda and Indra Kumar Gujral formed governments. They managed to unite after the election. So I will never, I have watched Indian politics
No,
long enough.
I know, Madhvan, and you're going
Let,
to say that you never know what happens. Obviously, we're about, nearly 2 years away, so kuch bhi ho sakta hai. The problem is at the first test, the cracks start showing. Saket, in all seriousness, I want to go back to what happened with the presidential elections, because that was an opportunity. The presidential and vice presidential elections, that was an opportunity to display opposition unity in practice. And whenever there is an actual test, then egos, concerns, battles, and the cracks start showing. So how will this Khela Hobe, and I'm taking Khela Hobe as an example because that's something that Mamata Banerjee, a very powerful regional leader, has said today, how will that really happen if there is no team that is willing to play together? A game on, or a game needs team players. Are the team players in place?
Look, the presidential election, the results of that or the VP election were foregone conclusions. Anyone who does the numbers would know that. The fact that the opposition parties together did put up a presidential candidate who did contest the elections. We had a unanimous presidential candidate. Now, in terms of differences between parties, rifts, look,
I'm talking about the vice presidential candidate, which Mamata Banerjee did not want to back because she said, "Humse pucha nahi."
No, it wasn't a question of humse pucha nahi. It wasn't that cut and dry. Let's not reduce it to that. It was something that we've made a very lengthy statement about and gone. I don't want to go into it right now. But let me give you an example of Parliament. Today in Parliament, all the parties that I spoke of speak in one voice. When the BJP wants to suspend, they suspend members of parliament from each of these parties. So we can't take one presidential election or one VP election. I can show you every parliament session where the opposition party was spoken in one voice. We do not even have a slightest difference between us when we vote, when we call for a debate. The way we manage the floor in the parliament today, the BJP is scared. The BJP now has to suspend members because that's the kind of opposition unity they're dealing with in parliament. That's why they have to reduce the numbers of the opposition and they're afraid that the session might not continue. So the question is that, look, there will be differences. If you had to say that, everybody's alike in a country like India across all states, that is never going to happen. But the bottom line is, if a Congress and a Shiv Sena could come together in Maharashtra and form a government.
And they ran that government. They ran that government till it was broken apart.
Thankfully, the difference between Lok Sabha and state elections is that in Lok Sabha, you cannot topple an MP by using money, like they can do with governments.
Mr. Bajoria, would it be a little foolhardy to dismiss opposition unity and what opposition parties can do if they come together?
No, Tamanna, I will never, in democracy, I will never dismiss anything. I will never run it down. But reality to reality hai na. It's after all up to the voter, it's not up to us. reality is reality. But I will never run it out. And I said right in the beginning, I'm saying right at the end, we welcome the opposition to unite because they themselves agree that they can't fight separately. आइए ना, unite कीजिए. If you can unite. On presidential election, he said a great thing. He forgot it was his own party's candidate who was told not to come to his own home state to campaign. That is the unity. Yes, sir. Sir, leave it that I know Bengal a little better than you, Saket Babu. Please, you stay with TMC in Maharashtra. It will be very good. Sir, your own candidate, Yashwant Sinha ji, was not allowed to come to Bengal. If you don't know that, sir, better find out from your colleagues.
आपको आपकी पार्टी में क्या होता है उस पे ध्यान दीजिए सर. And one last thing, Tamanna, he's talking about why don't these parties contest individually. Let me put two things before I leave in my conclusion. Last, number one, the BJP has more money thanks to electoral bonds and thanks to other ways of raising money, has more money than all other parties, not just opposition, all other parties in India put together. Number one. And number two, if Mr. Bajoria is all for democracy, अगर आप लड़ना चाहते हो ना, so don't act like a coward and use agencies against opposition parties. Don't act like cowards. Agencies to topple government.
That was one of the things that Mamata said. Fight me politically, not through agencies. And that perhaps is something that will unite opposition. All of them feel that they're being targeted by agencies. Okay, we'll wrap it here. But thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening. I'm right out of time. I want